Hello, Internet. And so we're back from a few weeks ago. A few weeks back, we did the big Channel 9 interview, which was
the big
Channel 9 long, I think, is the operating word. But it was really about setting out and explaining, what are we going to go do with the community? What are we going to go do with Channel 9? What's happening with the sites? And to recap, what's happening is that we're doing a bunch of work on Channel 9 that's going to bring in Channel 8, Channel 10, and bring that encoding for fun into Channel 9.
Yep. And
we walked through that, why we're making the change, what it's going to mean for content, how we're thinking about with the code base that is the Channel 9 website. And the one thing we didn't go into that was the experience. And that's what we promised to come back with. And today, Nishant is here, and Nishant's been helping drive kind of the project around the experience and how we go do these, affect Channel 9 and make it look cool and useful and a great experience for all different types of audiences. So that's what we're here today to talk about.
Awesome. Is this my cue?
That's your cue.
Yeah, that totally sucked, right? I'm actually not going to rehash, some of the stuff that we talked about last time. I think both of us have a tendency to talk a lot, so let's try and make it 15 minutes.
Let's see if we can make it rather than an hour and 15 minutes was the last one.
Let's let these people go home.
It's 12:20 p.m. right now. Let's go.
All right, 12:35 is what we're shooting for. So I'm not going to rehash some of that stuff. What I do want to talk about is, a few months ago when I came on the project, and I just want to sort of set the context for everyone, every UX project typically has this phase called discovery. It's just a fancy way of saying figure out what the hell you want to build, right? And discovery for this project was very interesting for me because there's so much history. I mean, all of you on the team have a tremendous amount of history. All of you watching out there probably have way more history than I do on Channel 9. So for me, it was really about trying to get into your shoes and trying to see Channel 9 as all of you see it, as the community sees it.
It's interesting, though, too, is that when you came to Microsoft, your first experience before being hired to Microsoft and actually learning about the company was Channel 9.
First, and I would say at that point, pretty much my only positive experience. Right?
Okay.
I mean, it really, I think you guys, it did for me what I think you guys wanted it to do, which was show the human face behind Microsoft.
Yeah,
right?
That's 5 years ago.
And this is not even Kool-Aid talking. Most people that know me know I'm not into the Kool-Aid. So it was, what was really interesting was there were a lot of people that were, what we're going to show people today, to me is not about I went off into some corner and designed something and said, oh, here we go. I really think I was a facilitator is how I saw myself in this project that helped other people bring their views forward and make sure that we're sort of doing the right thing from an experience perspective moving forward. So at some point you have to be a gatekeeper, and I think that had to take on that role at some point. But for the most part, I think what really worked out well was we facilitated the process. What everyone's going to see out there is not something that was created in a silo. Unbeknownst to most of you, I think, Charles was sending me emails, Larry was back there was sending me emails. A lot of people were sending me emails about what the community has been talking about, right? Long had a website up that actually rated Channel 9 features and stuff. I mean, we went on and looked at a lot of that stuff. You have a lot of, you guys also do your surveys, right, every year, and we looked at that over the years. And the thing is, there's a tendency to think when you're redesigning an entire website that it completely sucks, and that's not even the case here. It's just our business priorities, our community priorities, all of those things evolved very quickly, too quick for us to make the decisions I think we could have made if we had the time to come up with a very cohesive experience.
Yeah, and I think the thing is when we set out to build Channel 9, 5 years ago, in our wildest dreams, it would not be what it is today.
Yeah.
And it's been just an amazing experience to be a part of that. Now, what we designed and built 5 years ago served us well for the last 5 years. It's how do you go take the business forward into what is going to be useful for the next 5 years and make things discoverable and easy to find.
Right. So the toughest part about discovery, at least that I've experienced when you're on any UX project, is knowing when to stop, because you can always go on discovering more information. And kind of how that happened on Channel 9 was pretty random in my opinion, because I remember I walked in one day into the office, and I walked by your office and I was like, hey, I'm going to do this exercise where I'm going to lock myself in my office for 2 hours, and if I had 2 hours to redesign the homepage of Channel 9 on my whiteboard, what the heck would it look like?
And this happened after we did a bunch of talking to different customers, going through all of the data that and information we've learned from the coffee house and around the site.
Yeah, absolutely.
Site usage, how the site's been used, and looking at traffic,
Yeah.
and then where we need to go from an industry perspective and a community perspective. You take all of that stuff in, and I guess it's like information overload. And so, what's the outlet for that?
And I think that's usually that's the place that I found that I could have added value,
Right.
is where I could take that information, and there are various ways to synthesize that information.
Mm-hmm.
And what we decided to do was, hey, we really need to have a nice high-level picture that everyone can understand of what this thing could be, that what's this thing we've been talking about for so many hours, so many days, what we've read about on our forums, and so on and so forth. So, for the first time, we're actually going to show that sketch to everybody, because I think it'll sort of give you an idea of where we started in the evolution of this process, and then you'll see some of the wireframes and some of the comps we've done, and hopefully get a nice idea of sort of the high-level story of how this thing evolved.
Let's do it.
So let's actually do it. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the wireframe or the sketch that I have here, but really what happened was I finished the exercise and I actually walked to Jeff's office. I was like, hey, want to see what's on my whiteboard? And he came in and he was like, whoa, what the hell is this, right? And it was the first time I think I actually talked to someone on the project and explained what problems we were trying to solve, right? And the sketch was all about, the other way to do this is to write a functional spec, right? And it's very tough to actually talk over a functional spec that's 40 pages long.
Right.
People visualize things differently. So I think what the sketch, what you'll see as we move forward in the process, it really set the tone for what the site would become over the UX phase. So I'm not going to actually spend much time on this. I'm just going to scroll here. There are a few things you'll start noticing on the sketch immediately. Is the site feels a lot more alive, and this was based on a lot of feedback that we were getting, that I saw from the community, I saw from the team and stuff. How do we actually make it come to life again? There are a few subtle things that I'll call out when we actually get to the wireframes. But there, you've actually seen it, and I'm no artist, as you can see.
But some principles that came in here, and maybe the time to talk about that is like bringing the community forward.
Yep.
And making sure that we're surfacing up that there's people behind these videos creating the content. And there's people commenting.
Yep.
We have some layout problems and things like that with our content before. Where how do you make sure if we have multiple videos on the same day that are important?
Hey, you're giving it away.
Okay,
so we're going to talk about that with the wireframes.
Okay, I'm trying to make us stick to our time commitment. So let's.
It's not
great.
happening. Very quick, it was pretty clear early on that we needed to go out and we needed more help to do this project. It's just a very large project. Fortunately, there's a world-class design consultancy in our backyard by the name of Blue Flavor. I usually don't go by the brand names, but I had the opportunity of meeting Nick Fink a few years ago, and he's their director of experience. Now, Nick's specialty is information architecture. Yeah. For people who don't know what IA is, the colloquial way of explaining it is there's all this information. That's what a website does, right? It organizes information and presents it to users. How do you organize it in a logical manner on different pages such that users can find that information easily and consume it, right? It's a very tough task. It's part art, part science. What most people don't know about IA is one of those fields that you don't go to school to become an information architect. It's all about tribal knowledge. It's all about experience. The part that I think Nick is one of the best information architects in the world, right? I think he ranks right up there. And it's not because he got a certain set of degrees. I think it's just because of the amount of work he's done over the decade career he's had as an information architect.
This was really unique working with this agency or this firm that you wanted to do because it wasn't this thing where I felt like we were really outsourcing.
Yeah.
It was really neat in that way where we felt like it was like kind of this team coming together. So, Nick and going through that IA page, it wasn't like, okay, we wrote a bunch of docs and we handed it over the wall and said, go do it and then come back in a couple weeks and we'll do stuff. It was just this, it was this ongoing thing where we were talking about all the things that we had accumulated over the years. Where did we want to go ahead? What was the experience? What were our downfalls? Yeah. And, again, Channel 9 5 years ago, there was this thing of what we started. We had a site map we probably built out. I think I probably sketched out the site map about the pages we wanted. And then, tagging seemed big a couple of years ago, so we added tagging. And we've never had to step back and said, what's the IA?
Yeah.
And so this was actually probably one of my favorite experiences through the whole project was when we actually sat back and made the hard decisions about the information architecture for the site.
Yeah, and 90% of the issues that people brought up to me and I heard were classic IA issues, right? They weren't issues about I don't like this color, I mean, there were a few of those, but most of them were about I can't find information. When I find it, I can't find related information. There were a lot of information-related quirks that we had to actually solve. So, we went through this phase where Nick, worked with us. I really, like you said, we were sort of working together in sort of refining what the new IA could be for the site. So I actually wanted to show you guys a few of the wireframes that fell out of the IA exercise. And a wireframe, for those of you who don't know, best way to think about it is just the skeleton of a site, of a page on any site that's just drawn with lines, right? So you have no color, you have no you don't really focus on typography, color, on visuals. Sometimes you don't even focus on proportion. The two main focuses are layout of information on the page, and that's so actually let's actually jump to the first wireframe. So you guys saw the sketch. This is sort of the homepage that we locked on, or at least right now. Yeah. We're considering as evolving to the next step, right?
Well, this is a project that's going to move forward.
Yeah.
This is what we're building against right now. If you look at a couple things here, I don't know if how you're going to call it out, but we've simplified the navigation of the site. Up at the top there, you've got home, browse, learn. We'll talk a bit more of that later. Forums and about, and we've really kind of pulled things together in this. The IA work was something that when we set out the IA, then we stuck to it. And then we said this was sort of like the building blocks for the site. If it doesn't fit into the IA, we either have an IA problem or we're not looking hard enough into the IA.
And most projects like this typically fail when they discard the IA that they locked on at some point, right? So you started alluding to some of the top problems. One of the top, I would say the topmost problem that I discovered was one piece of content dislodges everything else on the site, right? And it's kind of, it intuitively that doesn't make sense because at any given time, Channel 9 has several pieces of content that are really good, Channel 8, 9, and 10. So we chose to solve that one above the fold because that's sort of our bread and butter on the site. And how we did it is this sort of tabbed interface that quickly lets you go through the top pieces of content. How do we arrive at the number 3? We just arrived at it, right? In the future, we might find out we might need 5 slots for that, or we might need fewer.
Yeah, the other day somebody was, and I didn't actually, Dan was actually walking me through the functionality about how this actually worked. Will these cycle through?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to maybe talk through a little bit about how this would go do it, because people see this and go, did you really solve your problem about having one item up here?
Absolutely. So this is something that we've tried on Mix Online. If you go to visitmix.com, basically, there we have a featured area, right? And we don't even show thumbnails or excerpts about our features. And intuitively, you would think that the first one that you show is the one that most people will only click on, and they won't click on the other stuff. What we've found over a year of watching our heat maps and analytics is they're pretty much the same. Once people are hooked into your featured area, they want to click through it. Now, on Mix Online, we do the same thing. We started with a 10-second interval, which seemed too long. I think we're like at 8 right now. But what we're going to do is cycle through this content. So I feel pretty confident that it's a tried and tested way to surface important things to people on the site. Then there are people who are just going to take the wheel and go, you know what, I don't want this.
Right.
And for those people, we have a lot of different ways for them to jump into the site. And that's what the homepage should serve as, right? It should serve as a representation of what's going on throughout the website. So there are a few things we've done here. We've taken some of the stuff that's already worked for us, right? Having a stream of information, which I think of as this is the equivalent in this thumbnail area, where you see some of the most recent content, you can see some of the most popular content. Some of the stuff you were talking about, bringing the community in, because working in a silo today or competing in a silo as a website is just absolutely the wrong way to go, right? There's a lot of conversation going on about Microsoft, about Channel 9, good and bad, that we actually want to bring into the community. We're starting off by sort of this pilot thing where we have Twitter right at the bottom of the page, right? We've thought about things like having Flickr, bringing that in. You see this little activity bar, which you'll see an evolution of that, when we launch. But that to me is sort of the community or
Yeah.
the Niner bar just evolving and growing up.
I think what kind of maybe drove me crazy about our last update, there's a lot of things I liked about the last update. One is it got us to a code base that allowed us to actually go do this type of stuff. But I felt like we had lost a little bit of bringing the community front and center. It meant something that you could go write something in the coffee house and it bubbled up to the homepage. And we're going to bring that back. Now, the things on the web and conversations on the internet have become distributed. They're on friend feed, Facebook, Twitter. And so we're going to do things like, if you hashtag hash or pound ch9 we're going to start bringing those in and let that circulate up. It's important to mention, the homepage is, we were talking about this before we started filming, the homepage is a really important part of the site, but it's probably not the most important page on your website,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, if you look at statistically across websites around the world, I think these numbers will hold up. Anywhere around 60 to 70% of your traffic is driven by search, and through those types of referrals. And then you add another 20-some to 30% of that is the other type of referrals, which are Facebook and blogs and other sites that are linked to your content. And then the last bit of content, if you look on blogs and things like that, maybe about 10% are direct bookmark access to things where people have typed in a URL or loaded it from a bookmark. So this page is important for people that come to our site. But
they're generally the new people that really get a lot of value from this page. But I think the community that exists, I think the next page would be really interesting to them. So the topmost problem we found in surveys, and from our customer sat surveys, is I can't find the stuff I'm looking for. Now there are many ways to solve this problem, right? You could have a very intelligent personalization engine. You could have just a linked list, right? A list of links sitting there on the page and let people find the stuff. Use the find thing feature on the browser. For this version, I think what became clear was we need to set a nice groundwork that we can build upon in the future. Yeah. So the browse area, which is going to be one of the top 5 navigation areas, is effectively that, right? If you're searching for some sort of content, chances are that this is the place you'll go to and you'll be able to find that content. You can look at it by topic, as you can see, by show or series, by different products, by format. Now, I wouldn't say this is perfect, right? The interesting thing about this page is we're really going to watch how people interact with this page, because I think what we're going to learn patterns that our community uses, because every community has a different pattern of doing things.
The key thing is we never had a view like this before. We'd load up a huge tag cloud, and that was your nav into the site, or maybe search, and that was it. With this here, there's a few things happening, and it's is that, hey, let's make sure shows populate up, and there's actually some editorial hygiene, maybe the word. There's a bunch of cleanup that's going to have to happen. Not removing content, but retagging content.
Retagging stuff.
Topics, and we have to apply topics to the tags. We have to clean up tags. We have to do things like, hey, we've got probably 3 ways we put Xbox, X-box, Xbox, X space box. We need to clean that up. Adding a product. So if there's actually is a Microsoft product and there's a finite number of products that we have, we'll go through and tag stuff that way so you can go browse and look that way. And this isn't the be-all, end-all, and we'll have lots of topics, but at least now you can actually land yourself in the center of gravity on
exactly. And it's probably too early to do anything more than this, right? Sometimes when I get the questions to, well, if I'm coming from channel 10 or channel 8, and I'm looking for a very specific set of content, how do I find that? You're going to have to look for it a little bit, right? I mean, but hopefully we're giving you a good framework to look for it. Now, things like personalization and those kind of features may be coming in the future, right? We'll determine if those are things that the community needs. But I feel that this is probably the section I'm most excited about, because I think it's an attempt to solve our topmost problem, right? The next page I just threw into there because I thought a lot of people would get a kick out of it, is the shows page, right? Yeah. Now, a show is like a sub-brand. And, one of the things that struck me as really odd when I came to Channel 9 for the first, when we started working on this project, was that shows really didn't get the clout and credit that they deserved and the space they needed on the site. So, we're going to treat show pages differently from permalink pages. So there's this notion of clustered content that's very easy to understand, right? The same thing applies to series content. So I just sort of threw this in there so you get an idea of, there are different ways to subscribe to a show. You're going to be able to subscribe to RSS feed, by email.
iTunes, Zune Marketplace.
Yep. You're going to get to meet the actual people, and because, what is a show at the end of the day is about the anchors and the guests on that
Yep.
show, right? So we're taking tried and tested methods that I think that, a lot of networks use.
Some nice branding at the top, and we'll use that, make sure that branding carries over into iTunes
Yep.
and Zune Marketplace. Actually making it easy to see previous episodes. There's other pages when you're actually at an episode pages, you can actually see the ones before it. We've really cleaned up the show pages. And this is actually what's going to be interesting is that I suspect when done right, and we're going to be bringing on a bunch of new shows related to Channel 9 and stuff filmed here in the studio. Well, I think what's going to happen is some people, this will be their view into Channel 9.
Possibly. Yeah.
And I think that their view into Channel 9 might be this show on iTunes.
Yep.
Or something that they did on search. So this is I'm actually really excited about these pages.
Yeah. So the next page I wanted to show was the Learn section, and I think you do a really good job about teeing up learning content on Channel 9, which is a very new thing.
Yeah.
So maybe if you want to introduce that.
So that before you go to it, when we look how Channel 9 started, it's always been about the inside view into Microsoft, right? And it's about the people behind the products. The other thing when you think about it, though, is that I think that there's a certain type of communication when we do our job right that's authentic. And so, how do we take that into more things and actually make maybe Channel 9 a little bit more useful to people? So we tee it up where you learn about things, you see our products, you see when we've put up content like from PDC and Mix on our websites, very popular.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think it's solid content and it's technical and it's interesting.
It's actionable.
It's actionable. So how can we do more of that? And so on that same vein, Channel 9 is always about, for the most part, about emerging and future of Microsoft. And so what we want to go do is say, hey, let's have the content that gets you interested and shows the people behind the product, sort of the director's cut of what's happening at Microsoft, but let's actually make it actionable. So we're going to bring on the best thing is we call the area Learn. But if you go over to the page, we're actually going to bring on an area of content that is around learning. And so here, these are training courses before, and some of this content had shipped publicly before. Often this was content that was hidden behind the walls of our early adoption programs at Microsoft. So you'd sign NDAs, and your company would go to these. Maybe they wouldn't be available to the individuals, and these were often instructor-led training courses that you may go in your local market to go do. What we're going to go do is we're actually going to bring this content onto Channel 9. And so rather than having to download an 86 megabyte file and extract it and go through it, we'll have little courses and little pieces of content that you can get to for free and that you can learn with. And it's going to be the same values of Channel 9 where it's authentic. We work in evangelism. That's the group that we're part of at Microsoft, so there's technical evangelists here. They create this content, and they're going to be publishing it to Channel 9. Like an example would be the folks behind, some of this content would be created by the folks that do the 10-4 show.
Yep.
Drew Robbins, Jason Olson, Jonathan Carter.
I mean, Drew was pretty instrumental in helping us figure out what this section would be.
Yeah,
right.
And there's principles around the content. We'll do content. It's not just going to be videos. It will be sample code.
Yep.
It'll be little snippets of things that we can go do, screencasts and videos and shows like 10-4. But it'll have the principles of Channel 9 in that it's discussion, that people can talk about the content, that they can go and push it and share it out on the internet. And it's always going to be about the stuff in the future of Microsoft, so stuff, very early content. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
I think, we've gotten the feedback. If you look through that last survey, one of the things was, can I have some things that are a little bit more relevant to learning how to do stuff? And this is our answer towards that.
Pragmatic content. I always discover these little Easter eggs that I never used to see before. Look at the little thumbnails it has, Jeff.
DeBoss.
Yeah, well, the pet champion is like an inside joke. I know in the last video we talked about how we exchange a lot of pet photographs.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm the pet champion.
My favorite is, I did send this to my daughter. It was like some email I sent her last night, and I ended it with, and here's a bunny with a pancake on its head. So.
I don't think you ever grow out of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that was actually, let me actually go back to this before I move on to visual design. So, I mean, you saw sort of a sampling, right, which is what I wanted to do. I mean, we have a lot more wireframes, but
we have wireframed out, sorry to interrupt, we've wireframed out, one thing we did with this project is said, we've wireframed out, I'm saying 78, maybe the number's less or no, but that's in the order of magnitude.
Yeah.
We've gone out and we've actually wireframed out where we need to go ahead as a business, where the whole site comes together. Some of this will ship in our first release. Some of this will continue on, but we actually have a blueprint for how we actually go take Channel 9 forward, and we'll disclose more and more of this over time. But we wanted to give you, these aren't the only wireframes, there's many, many more. And what we want to do is give a little glimpse of that we are structured, we're planning, we're thinking through how we go do this release and how we get this to happen.
Yep. So typically after any sort of IA phase, the thing that usually follows that is visual design, right?
Right.
Most people actually think it's the other way around, that you start thinking about colors and typography and where the imagery is going to be sitting. The other part that I was really excited about and really started the conversation with Blue Flavor was the couple guys who ended up working on this project, which is the screenshot I sort of disclosed earlier. But one of the guys was Kevin Tamura, and the other guy was Matt Brown from Things That Are Brown. Now, both of these guys are just phenomenal visual designers, creative directors, right? When Matt was the first guy approached for this project because I've quietly stalked his portfolio, much like I've stalked Nick, and that's what we do on the internet, right? We stalk other people because the information's up there. And I contacted him and said, hey, I'd be interested in you becoming a part of this, and then we met Blue Flavor and stuff. The direction that, I wouldn't say direction, but the advice that I gave them as they embarked on sort of redesigning the visual aspect of the site, right? What kind of color palette they want to use and those kind of things was, very little design is probably going to be the best one for this. And the mantra that sort of they followed, and I think became a bit of a mantra even within the team, was this thing that I used to try to communicate, where I always perceived Channel 9 as a developer website or a geek website that was designed by someone that had fairly good design chops. Right, but the person was probably a developer first. And that's what I told these guys. I was like, if you were to go out and design a website, putting your developer hat on, right? What is the thing that you'd come out with? Now, they had to sort of retain some of the core characteristics of Channel 9, the yellow and the 9 guy and all those kind of things are just very close to our heart. And that's our branding. We shouldn't be changing that. It was, this is the first time I think we're showing anybody outside our inside, just our team, what those comps look like that Matt came up with. And this is the first one, just to set it up for you. So this is the bread and butter, right? This is the page that Jeff was talking about earlier, the permalink page. Now, before we jump into it, 2 caveats: don't focus on the logo yet.
Yeah.
That's just a placeholder logo. And
we have questions for you later.
We do. Which we should get to quickly. And the second piece I don't want you to focus on is the video player skin, because the good news is we are coming out with a new video player too, and I think it's going to make a lot of you happy. But if you actually look at this page, let's just actually scroll through it. What you should see is very little visual design, right? And the whole mantra was let the content shine, because that's what the site is about. We can always add color on there if it's necessary, but nobody. When I interviewed people and when I talked to people, that's never something they talked about, right? Because I would always ask, so are you attached to any colors or any styles? And most people I talked to said, no, absolutely not. As long as I can find the stuff and it looks good. This is not to say that the content isn't visually separated well, right? That the grid system isn't good. That doesn't allow you to. It allows you to read things really well. There's a strong focus on typography too that really makes it easy to read this content and makes you want to go to more content and read it, right? We're thinking about what kind of leading makes sense. The font pack that Matt eventually came up with actually uses Calibri, which has become a popular font. So if you are on a Windows system, you will see Calibri in different places. If you're on a Mac, you'll probably see Helvetica in different places, or Arial and stuff. If you go down to the comment area too, we've simplified that too. Now this will probably change as we go into development. Because there are a few features that aren't accounted for in the screenshot. The same applies to the actual comment form. But really, the takeaway for me from this, and when I showed it to people, was, it looks good, right? Nobody had a very strong reaction as saying, I just absolutely love it. Nobody had a strong reaction saying, I absolutely hate this, which is I think, where we want to be for a release like this one.
And we talk to people internally, we talk to different customers that visit Channel 9 today, we talk to customers that don't come to Channel 9 today, we talk to customers that that maybe should be coming to talk to Channel 9, and you factor all of that in. And through this whole release it's been a kind of a continuum of factors and levers that we pull into it, right? There's decisions we make based on survey data. There's decisions we make based on weblogs and how they're used, and then decisions based on customer feedback, and then decisions on things we need to take the business forward too, and doing things. There's a couple things in this release that that are going to go away that I should probably talk about now. I would meaning to mention earlier, and there's two areas of the site that are actually going to go away in Channel 9. You can notice it in the IA. One is the wiki. The wiki was some of the early code that we wrote in the early days of Channel 9. Somewhat popular. If you look at the log files on the servers and things like that, no one comes to it. That might be a statement of functionality and usage, but it will go away. We're going to package it up, and we're going to make it in a way so that people can download it. Maybe we can go do something to it, and we'll release the rights to it. But one thing that we really wanted to stand behind in this Channel 9, in this redesign, is that if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right, we're going to do it well, and we're going to make sure it works. And so with the wiki is a byproduct of that. It's going to go away. The second thing is the sandbox. We have the sandbox where we can upload code. We're one of a number of places at Microsoft that you can upload code. There's teams much bigger than ours that own CodePlex and Code Gallery. And so the sandbox is going to go away as well. And it'll migrate. We'll do stuff to Code Gallery. How we're going to go do it, though, we're not going to be jerks and just shut the stuff off. Just like with the wiki, we're going to go and we'll package it up so you can download it. The thing that we're going to do with the sandbox, we'll leave that forum up. We'll set it to read only. And what we'll go do is, we'll set some sort of timetable for people to go do it. But,
sure.
But I had forgotten about that earlier, and I wanted to mention that.
No, I think that's great to mention. And it seemed pretty clear just talking to people that those are two areas that we probably want to deprecate in some form. The second page that I threw in that's in the form of a comp just allows you to sort of, you guys saw the wireframe for the browse section, right? And this is how it's sort of translated to the visual comp itself. So really, there's not much to say. I mean, same principles apply across the board. There's a nice strong grid. There's a lot of white space. There's it's very readable. And the test that always makes me nervous is the wife test, right? Whenever I build something or design something, is just I show it to my wife, and she has this knack for. I mean, it's her first reaction that defines for me whether something is good or not. And I've completely changed it, like Gestalt that we launched recently. I'll probably write an article or disclose it at some point, but the site that we were supposed to go out with was completely different. Right. That I spent 2 more nights coding up just because, when PETA looked at it, she's like, it looks like kind of weak.
But they're nice, clean pages.
Yeah.
They're great for SEO, valid markup, Matt, awesome job working with him again.
He passed the wife test, and I living there, I know it's kind of tough.
So that's a great pitch.
So this is actually, this sort of hopefully gives everyone a preview of what's coming. Yeah. There's one thing that's actually left.
Yeah. This was, you talk about change and things that's been hard for this project, and we're trying to make sure that we're careful by the community and we're listening and we're where are we taking the user experience. So it's like people that are visiting us today, it's not like moving your bedroom from the main floor up to or from the upstairs down to the main floor and doing things like that. And so we have to make sure we do well by that. I have to tell you, one of the things that I've had a real difficult time on this project was up there in the left-hand corner there, up on the site, was this Channel 9 guy. The first, we go through the project. The wireframes just felt great. The IA felt great. Even the visual design phase.
We
felt
locked
great.
on that pretty quick.
Yeah, but when we came to the 9 guy, every time they'd come back, they were weird. They were.
So it's probably a good preface to say that we decided that we wanted to evolve the 9 guy as a part of this evolution, right? The guy that's up there right now is sort of this pixel art guy that's just not going to look good on the site. It's just going to look out of place. And this was a time where we have 3 different 9 guys floating around outside. Yeah. We have one on that sticker that's this sort of vectorized form, one on the website, and then there's a phone guy who's like completely different from those 2, right, in terms of proportion and stuff. So I mean, we made a decision early on that hey, we wanted to evolve the 9 guy, but like you said, like once we started evolving him, I mean, everything else to me that seemed like it would be an issue was never an issue, right? People just jumped in and said, hey, we love this, we like this. But when it came to the 9 guy, it was just, I saw a lot of emotions flying, right? So what I was suggesting to Jeff and to the other guys on the team was, I was like, look, this seems like one of those things that is a very emotional topic for people. So why not ask everyone?
So that's what we're going to do. We'll put it up here, and we've got different variations of the 9 guy. We have a version A, which is one of the renderings that the illustrator brought back to us. A very well done illustrator. There's different things about this that I like. There's things of it that actually kind of bother me. But I won't let my...
Hey, you're biasing the audience. All right, you can't talk anymore.
I can't? Okay, I'll stop.
No, you're biasing everyone. Okay, so treat all of them equally.
Like, they're all wonderful in their own way.
And there are 3 9 guys here, and I'll give you a few notes about them, and then I'm going to actually give you guys a link.
Oh, no, Sonny, you're going to bias them.
Oh, I'm not. I'm going to very quietly bias them. But I'm going to give you guys a link that you can go to and actually take a Poll Daddy poll for us. And if we get a significant number of responses, we're really going to figure that into picking the real 9 guy. So the 2nd and the 3rd guy are actually the same proportionally and from a vector perspective, right? They're pretty much the same guy. And those guys represent the foam guy. So when we went around and asked people which guy do you relate to the most, everyone has the little foam guy, right? But he's proportionally very different. He's kind of slimmer, he's kind of taller. He has a slightly different expression on his face than the existing 9 guy, which I think has very close to this expression.
Right.
So there are 2 looks and feels here. So when you're actually going out and thinking about which one you would like to see the most, I plead that you think about 2 things, right? Because this is a very tough exercise to do, and tough to do it objectively, right? A lot of emotion flows into this. The first thing I want you to think about is when someone new is going to come to the site, not you, not someone that's been a part of the community for a long time, which guy do you think is going to make them feel like this website is current and is welcoming and seems familiar enough that they've seen in terms of vector graphics that they've seen all over the web? The second thing I want you to think about is the guy that you pick. Think about how it places on those comps that I showed you, right? Because they're fairly I would say I will not say Web 2.0, but they're fairly new design, right? They use a lot of design principles that you see on forward-looking, forward-thinking websites. So those are the 2 things, right? How do you think new people are going to perceive this, the new audience, and how do you think the one you pick actually looks like on the comps that we showed you? So we'll have a Poll Daddy link up later, and like I said, if I can get 100 people to vote, right, then it's a done deal. We'll sort of take those results and do something with them. I mean, we'll actually use them for the final choice that we make, but.
We'll have the link on this post, and go from there. But this was hard. When these, I think there was other versions that maybe we'll disclose this sometime that came in before this. That it was just
one good exercise is when you actually pull this up on the Poll Daddy. I have a larger screenshot. Pull it up in your monitor, and if you have a 9 guy, try and place it in the same angle, right? Because your first instinct might be this doesn't look like the 9 guy, but if you actually took the foam guy and you put it up there, it's pretty much identical, right, in that same angle. So one of the things that helps when I was showing this to people is I realized when I show it at this size, people tend to react a lot differently than when I show it to them at this size, which is likely what the logo will be at on the site. So that's kind of all we have. I mean, I'm assuming this video will go out pretty soon, and we'll be watching the comments and the commentary. I'm sure there'll be some of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've never done this on any project where we've just gone out and just shown everything before it's even close to being in production, right? So
it's been an interesting project. We've been trying to make the right decisions about the things that we have to bring forward, and we're trying to be transparent about the things that we don't bring forward. It's exciting for me too. It really does feel. I think I said it probably half a dozen times in the last video. A little bit back to our roots about the things that we do. But thank you. Let's. Tell us what you think. We will do more deeper dives in the coming weeks around things like the learning area and what to expect from that content. Different other areas of the site. Dev teams working busily away on the stuff that we're doing, and
I wonder who's going to win the wager. I think we're at 32 minutes now.
Yeah, that's great. Alrighty, I said 35 minutes, so I could sing for the next 3 minutes, but I think we'll save you that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.